From a 23-year-old Hong Kong beauty pageant runner-up with a spotless image and no scandals, stepping into one of the most powerful, wealthy families in East Asia, with perhaps the most flattering praise of her life, spoken by Richard Li himself, the second son of tycoon Li Ka-shing, a man behind a vast multi-billion-dollar fortune. There is no smell of money on her. To a 33-year-old woman, quietly signing the papers to sell a villa worth 106.8 million Hong Kong dollars, about 13.7 million US dollars. Accepting a staggering loss of 28.4 million Hong Kong dollars, roughly 3.6 million US dollars, just so she could leave. All of Hong Kong was in an uproar. The furniture was moved out. The beauty pageant trophy was taken away, and even the bathroom storage rack was dismantled. And yet, the man who'd once spent more than 100 million Hong Kong dollars to buy this home, the powerful heir of the Li family, one of the most influential names in Hong Kong, never appeared. My friends, what really happened over those 9 years for a woman to withdraw from this billion-dollar family in such a devastating way? Let's unravel it together right now. Before Karmen Kwok entered Richard Li's world, the second son of Li Ka-shing, the tycoon behind a vast multi-billion-dollar fortune, had long been famous throughout Hong Kong's entertainment circles for his romantic history. Over 30 years of relationships, spanning the business world, the entertainment industry, and the legal field, girlfriends came and went. But everything always revolved around one iron rule that had never been broken. Love, but never marry. Give, but never promise. He never lacked women, but he'd also never truly belonged to any woman. Richard Li's first love began at Stanford University, a student romance with Margaret Chu, a Chinese-Singaporean lawyer. For a time, it came close to something pure. But when he returned to Hong Kong to take over the family business, that relationship quickly came to an end. From that moment on, love was no longer a world shared by two people. It became a game, redefined by power, resources, and the right to choose. Entering the 1990s, he fell deeply in love for 4 years with Maki Nagamin, a lead host at Japan's NHK. For love, she moved to Singapore and almost seemed to bet her entire life on him. But during this relationship, he was repeatedly caught up in romantic rumors involving other women. On one side was tolerance and sacrifice. On the other was a constant testing of boundaries. And in the end, this cross-border love story ended in silence. After that, his romantic history grew even more crowded. There was the mixed-race lawyer Law Oyan, the prestigious-born judge Li So-lan, and most notably, Isabella Leong, the woman who gave birth to his 3 sons and seemed to hold almost every card a woman could have as the mother of heirs to a powerful family. And yet, in the end, even she couldn't exchange all of that for a marriage certificate. At the age of 23, she took her children to Canada, leaving behind one of the most haunting, wealthy family stories in Hong Kong showbiz. When you place all of these women side by side, you begin to see one thing they had in common. Most of them were strikingly beautiful, strong, radiant in their own right, women who could stand beside him as equals. But the arrival of Karmen Kwok broke all of those patterns. She came from an ordinary background with no foundation and no powerful resources behind her. She was the second runner-up, the third-place title holder of Miss Hong Kong 2015. At 23, she had a gentle personality, even one that seemed almost too obedient. She didn't look like a rival. She looked like someone who could be placed into position. And more than that, pay attention to this. There was a 26-year age gap between her and Richard Li. When she was 23, he was already 49. When she had just stepped into the entertainment world with an innocent, wide-eyed face, he'd already lived through half a lifetime of elite romances. For Richard Li, a man long weary of boardroom mind games and emotional tug-of-war, someone like Karmen Kwok, by contrast, felt safe. And so, she became the exception. She wasn't the most dazzling woman, but she was the most suitable one. But perhaps from the very beginning, she failed to realize the most important thing. When someone is chosen because she is easy to control. The core logic of that relationship is no longer love. It's an entrance, granted under conditions. And the next 9 years of her life wouldn't simply be companionship. They'd become a fate. That tightened around her, little by little. Karmen Kwok was born in 1992. She came from an ordinary background and studied business administration at the City University of Hong Kong. In 2015, following her mother's advice, she entered the Miss Hong Kong pageant. With her gentle, obedient appearance and her non-confrontational personality, she won the title of second runner-up. After that, she smoothly signed a contract with TVB, appeared in the drama ICAC Investigators 2016, and worked as an outdoor host for the program Scoop. At that time, she didn't have what people would call ambitions of marrying into wealth, nor did she seem determined to climb higher. She only wanted to move step by step, acting, hosting, finding her footing in the entertainment world. Her life was so simple. It was almost monotonous. Outside of work, she was either at the library or quietly living alone. Among beauty queens competing to shine, she seemed like an outsider, clean, scandal-free, restrained, even almost too ordinary. The fateful turning point came on Valentine's Day, 2016. That day, Hong Kong media suddenly released a series of photos. Karmen Kwok, traveling in Tokyo, with Richard Li. In the pictures, the two walked side by side through the streets, looking close and intimate, and were even photographed entering a luxury hotel together. Almost the moment the news broke, with barely any buffer at all, the story shot straight to the top of Hong Kong's search rankings. You have to understand, not long before that, Richard Li had just come out of a string of romantic rumors involving female lawyers and businesswomen. After less than half a year of silence, he was suddenly spotted traveling overseas with an unknown beauty queen. That seamless transition immediately ignited curiosity and speculation across all of Hong Kong. What made it even more thought-provoking was that, in the face of this public storm, Richard Li neither denied nor confirmed anything. He simply sent reporters one cold sentence: "We are fine, thank you." And when asked what he loved about Karmen Kwok, he gave a line that would later become the biggest label attached to her name. "There is no smell of money on her. Pure. She doesn't love money." Remember that sentence. Because 9 years later, when she would lose 28.4 million Hong Kong dollars, about 3.6 million US dollars, just to sell the home he'd given her, that phrase, "she doesn't love money," would become the most bitter irony in Hong Kong entertainment circles. Her reaction was swift, and also decisive. Almost at the same time that public opinion was boiling over, she turned down all her work at TVB, quickly withdrew from the entertainment industry, and began actively disappearing from public view. She no longer accepted interviews, no longer appeared in public, and didn't take part in any of Richard Li's business ventures. She placed herself in an extremely precise position, existing, but not disturbing. Tacitly acknowledged, but never crossing the line. She began learning how to become invisible. In 2017, Richard Li gave her an answer powerful enough to shake all of Hong Kong showbiz. He spent 106.8 million Hong Kong dollars, about 13.7 million US dollars, to buy a duplex penthouse with a rooftop pool at Tower 5 of 1 Mayfair on Broadcast Drive in Kowloon Tong. The usable area was more than 2,188 square feet, with an enormous rooftop terrace of up to 1,855 square feet. At the time, it directly set a record for the area's price per square foot. More importantly, this villa was registered entirely under Karmen Kwok's name, with Li Ka-shing, vice chairman and CEO of Pacific Century Premium Developments, signing the documents on her behalf. Within elite wealthy circles, this was almost an act of favor without reservation, a signal that seemed nearly definitive. At that moment, the name Karmen Kwok completely leapt from new host to the future lady of a wealthy family. Public opinion quickly shifted. She was seen as the woman who'd broken Richard Li's curse of short-lived romances. Some even claimed she was only one step away from a marriage certificate. But my friends, there was one detail that even Hong Kong media wouldn't uncover until 2026. A detail that caused the entire story of a lavishly gifted home to collapse completely. That house wasn't entirely a gift. According to transaction records later made public, Richard Li only paid the initial down payment. The rest, a 25-year bank mortgage, was placed under Karmen Kwok's own name. In other words, while the public was marveling at a tycoon gifting a luxury home, the reality on the legal paperwork was that the person signing on the line marked borrower was the 25-year-old woman who just left the entertainment industry, and 2020, the year she was forced to personally step forward and renew the mortgage agreement with the bank, was also the very year their relationship began to show clear cracks. Everything looked like a perfect wealthy family fairy tale, but no one knew that this dreamlike beginning had already planted the seeds of danger. Richard Li's generosity was both affection and shackles. That villa was both a place to land and a prison. From the moment the ownership was transferred, Karmen Kwok's next 9 years of silent endurance and desperate struggle had already been decided. After becoming Richard Li's woman, Karmen Kwok pushed her gentleness to the extreme. On social media, she only shared posts about working out, food, and growing plants, a life that looked clean and peaceful, yet deliberately avoided every trace connected to him. She didn't attend wealthy family parties, didn't build connections with elite social circles, and even took the initiative to cut off old relationships, withdrawing herself into a world that was almost completely closed. For 9 years, this relationship left almost no public trace. The only time she was seen was at Hong Kong's Happy Valley Racecourse in April 2019. That day, Richard Li made a rare appearance with her at an event. And you should understand this. Even Isabella Leong, the woman who gave birth to his 3 sons, had never received this kind of treatment. In front of the cameras, Karmen Kwok wore a simple black dress, kept her head lowered, and gently held his arm. Her expression was timid, with a trace of awkward, unnatural shyness. She barely looked at the cameras and said nothing. Her whole body seemed as if it were deliberately suppressing its own presence. Perhaps that was the most favored moment she ever had in those 9 years. It was also the last. After that, there'd never again be another public appearance together. Behind that layer of ambiguity, his life continued to operate as usual. In 2018, he was photographed gathering late at night with a socialite, leaving in the same car with gestures that looked extremely intimate. The very next day, headlines declaring Karmen Kwok has fallen out of favor spread across the newspapers. In 2019, rumors surfaced again that he'd been secretly meeting with a model and internet celebrity. During that period, Karmen Kwok updated her social media less and less, and even the rare posts she did make carried a deliberately composed calm. In 2020, he entered the mainland Chinese entertainment market, frequently dining and taking photos with various female stars. Because of that, rumors continued to spread without pause. She still gave no response, quietly deleting some traces of her old life. Instead, the real turning point came in 2021. That year, Richard Li founded his own entertainment company and spent heavily to sign Serene Lim, a Malaysian Chinese beauty queen, and first runner-up at Miss Chinese International 2017. He not only poured acting resources into her, but also personally attended events with her and went with her to view and buy properties. The two were repeatedly seen appearing together, looking close and intimate. Hong Kong media summed it up in one phrase: the current new love. And Karmen Kwok, for the first time in this relationship, had been completely replaced. Public opinion erupted, yet she still didn't speak. But this time, her silence began to feel heavy, and a more realistic kind of pressure also began to reveal itself, little by little. Hong Kong media revealed that, in the later stage, every expense tied to that villa fell onto her shoulders. Management fees, maintenance fees, and especially the bank mortgage payments, which reached around 200,000 Hong Kong dollars a month, about 25,600 US dollars. Without a stable job, without a steady stream of income, the cost of simply existing in that house alone consumed roughly 2.5 million Hong Kong dollars a year, about 320,000 US dollars. That towering expense was like an invisible net, trapping her in place, unable to retreat, and unable to move forward. Just imagine it. A woman approaching 30, with no marriage certificate and no career, making mortgage payments month after month on a home under her own name. A home that was, in essence, a golden cage built by another man. The more obedient she was, the less she asked for. The tighter the restraints became. Because when a woman voluntarily says she needs nothing, the man standing across from her no longer has to give her anything. Only by then did she slowly begin to understand. What Richard Li had given her was never a place to return to. It was an arrangement that merely looked respectable. That house was a gift, but it was also a form of control that never needed to be spoken aloud. She'd spent 9 years exchanging herself for all of it, and little by little, over those same 9 years, she'd also lost herself. When she finally saw this clearly, she was no longer the 23-year-old beauty pageant runner-up she'd once been. She was a skylark that had been kept for far too long inside a golden cage. Serene Lim's appearance became the final straw for Karmen Kwok. Richard Li gave his new love open, undisguised favor. He not only bought Serene Lim a villa, but also brought her into his social circle. Compared with Karmen Kwok's 9 years of devotion, it all suddenly seemed painfully cheap. She too had once tried to push for marriage, quietly asking Richard Li for an official status. But think about it. Even Isabella Leong, with 3 sons by his side, couldn't force him into marriage. What chance did Karmen Kwok have, with no one to rely on and without even a child, as leverage in this negotiation? But my friends, the truth is that Karmen Kwok had been silently preparing her way out for a long time. Since 2024, she had invested tens of millions of Hong Kong dollars into opening 2 beauty and nail salons in prime locations in Hong Kong, put money into an aesthetic clinic, and began openly posting commercial contact information on social media, a move completely at odds with the discreet image of a billionaire's girlfriend she'd maintained for 9 years. By the end of 2025, after accumulating enough capital and financial independence, she made the decisive move. She quietly listed the villa that held 9 years of love and resentment. The asking price was 88 million Hong Kong dollars, about 11.3 million US dollars, nearly 20 million Hong Kong dollars. Lower than the original 106.8 million Hong Kong dollars purchase price from years earlier. After the listing sat for nearly half a year and the price was cut twice, she finally accepted a closing price of 78.4 million Hong Kong dollars, about 10 million US dollars, in early 2026. She wasn't desperately short of money, yet she was determined to cut off every remaining tie, to sell the gift that carried those shackles, and to break completely free from Richard Li's control. In March 2026, the Hong Kong Land Registry released the transaction details. The villa had finally been sold for 78.4 million Hong Kong dollars, about 10 million US dollars, resulting in a paper loss of 28.4 million Hong Kong dollars, or roughly 3.6 million US dollars. The day the news came out, all of Hong Kong was shaken. Hong Kong reporters rushed to the scene and photographed the villa after it had been completely cleared out. The beauty pageant trophy, personal belongings, and every trace of Karmen Kwok's life there had all been taken away. Even the bathroom storage rack had been removed, leaving behind not the slightest sign that she'd once lived there. The entire transaction was signed and handled by Karmen Kwok, alone. From beginning to end, Richard Li never appeared, as if this 9-year relationship had nothing to do with him at all. It repeated the exact same script from 9 years earlier. When the home was purchased, he hadn't appeared in person either. When she entered, he didn't show his face. When she left, he still didn't show his face. All that remained was a set of documents, and a woman, forced to clean up the wreckage on her own. On the surface, this loss-making sale looked like Karmen Kwok's defeat. But in truth, this may have been the cruelest revenge she could have delivered to Richard Li. Richard Li had always been a man who loved control. The beginning and the end of his past relationships had all been directed by his own hand. His former girlfriends could only passively accept the outcome, not daring to resist in the slightest. He probably thought Karmen Kwok would be the same as the others, quietly accepting the end of the relationship, keeping the villa, living out the rest of her life there, and preserving the final dignity for both of them. But Karmen Kwok did the exact opposite. With the fastest speed and the greatest loss, she sold the villa that symbolized their relationship, wiping away every trace of those 9 years. She didn't publicly criticize Richard Li. She didn't create a loud scandal. Instead, through this silence, she told everyone she was giving up the material temptation of a wealthy family. She would rather lose money than remain trapped in this relationship. She no longer wanted to be entangled with Richard Li in any way. This sudden escape shattered Richard Li's rhythm of control and pushed him into a passive position. Everyone in Hong Kong could see it clearly. 9 years of companionship had resulted in nothing but emptiness. The glittering title of Billionaire's girlfriend was, in the end, only a flower in the mirror. The moon reflected on water. Beautiful, but impossible to hold. Karmen Kwok's decisiveness wasn't only a farewell to her own youth. It was also a public rejection of Richard Li's attitude toward love, causing this top tycoon to lose face completely. And that carried more weight than any argument ever could. Some people said Karmen Kwok was foolish, that she had a villa worth over 100 million Hong Kong dollars, about 12.8 million US dollars, and instead of holding on to it, she accepted a loss and sold it. Others understood her clarity. Money can be earned again, but youth can never return. Rather than spend an entire life being worn down inside a wealthy family prison, it's better to cut one's losses in time and buy back freedom. The money lost on paper was the tuition she paid for 9 years of youth. It was also the price she paid to break free from her chains. The news of Karmen Kwok leaving at a loss immediately made Hong Kong's entertainment world remember another woman deeply etched into Richard Li's life, Isabella Leong. Both women fell into the web of wealthy family romance. Both paid the price with their youth. Both failed to marry into the Li family. And yet, they walked down two completely different paths, becoming two classic miniature portraits in the history of Hong Kong's wealthy family love stories. Isabella Leong's beginning was far more dazzling than Karmen Kwok's. At 12, she signed with Emperor Entertainment. At 16, she made her debut and immediately rose to the top. With her captivating face, she was seen as the successor to Cecilia Cheung, a monster rookie, enthusiastically promoted by Hong Kong's entertainment industry. At 19, she fell in love with Richard Li. She dared to love and dared to hate. She directly terminated her contract with her former boss, Emperor Entertainment, and withdrew from the spotlight for love. In just 2 short years, she gave birth to 3 sons for Richard Li, holding in her hands the trump card of heirs, full of confidence and momentum. But even then, Richard Li still refused to give her a true family home. At 23, Isabella Leong decisively ended it. She directly announced the breakup and took her 3 children to Canada. No entanglement, no demand for an astronomical breakup fee. Although public rumors claimed she'd received 500 million Hong Kong dollars, about 64 million US dollars, in support payments, she repeatedly came forward to clarify that she hadn't taken a single cent, insisting on raising her children with financial independence. Her departure was the clarity of a woman who'd seen through the rules of the wealthy family game. Even though she temporarily stepped away from the entertainment world, she never lost herself. Karmen Kwok, by contrast, didn't have Isabella Leong's resources or decisiveness. She came from an ordinary background. had an unremarkable career, and had no children to use as bargaining chips. From the very beginning, she chose the path of dependence, using 9 years of gentleness in exchange for a brief sense of stability. In that relationship, she gained and lost, struggled again and again, and only dared to leave. When her heart had completely died, she may have seemed weak, but my friends, in truth, she was no less courageous. She gave up the material comfort already within reach, choosing to suffer a loss, if that was what it took to buy back her freedom. Through that loss-making sale, she cut off 9 years of love and resentment. The experiences of these two women proved the true nature of Richard Li's approach to love. He could spend enormous sums for romance, but he'd never give up his freedom for it. He enjoyed being admired and depended on, but he didn't want to carry the responsibility of marriage. Isabella Leong saw through this early and withdrew in time. Karmen Kwok needed 9 years to wake up, completing her own rescue in a devastating way. Today, Isabella Leong has returned to acting in films and stage plays, living like an independent queen. Her 3 sons are well-behaved and outstanding, and her life appears complete. As for Karmen Kwok, after clearing out the villa, she is focused on running her 2 beauty and nail salons, transforming herself into a lifestyle influencer. She has also been confirmed to appear in the exclusive film Night Shift Manager, marking her return to the screen after nearly a decade of retreat. And more than that, pay attention to this detail. In the first half of 2026, the frequency of Karmen Kwok's flights to Singapore doubled compared with the pre-pandemic period. The 78.4 million Hong Kong dollars, about 10 million US dollars, she'd just received according to market judgment, would be enough for her to make a down payment on a luxury apartment on Singapore's Orchard Road. In other words, she's not only leaving Richard Li, she's preparing to leave Hong Kong itself, leaving behind the city that has branded her for 9 long years as the billionaire's girlfriend. Both of these women were once lost inside the whirlpool of wealthy family life, and in the end, both relied on themselves to break free from those chains and live out their own brilliant lives. My friends, 9 years of youth disappeared in just 3 days of a moving truck going back and forth. Nearly 30 million Hong Kong dollars, about 3.8 million US dollars, vanished with a single signature on a home sale. Looking at the balance sheet, Karmen Kwok was clearly the one who suffered the heaviest loss in this wealthy family chess game. But this wasn't the surrender of a loser. It was the final counterattack of a woman who'd accepted the highest price just to reclaim the right to decide her own life. She didn't go to the newspapers to tell her suffering. She didn't live stream herself crying. She didn't tear open any scandal. She simply used 28.4 million Hong Kong dollars, about 3.6 million US dollars, to RIP apart the label of Billionaire's girlfriend. That public opinion had hung around her neck for 9 years. And that was the hardest slap a woman with no smell of money could deliver, to a man who was used to controlling everything with money. Because 9 years earlier, when Richard Li uttered that famous line, "There is no smell of money on her. Pure. She doesn't love money." Perhaps that was the only moment in his 30 years of romances when he was loved in the purest way. And it was he, not anyone else, who personally turned the only pure love of his life into a 25-year bank mortgage contract. A villa can't hold on to a person's heart. Money can't buy true affection. Favor can be measured in square feet, but sincerity cannot. The collapse of a wealthy family dream isn't the terrifying part, my friends. What's terrifying is spending an entire life trapped inside that dream, too afraid to wake up. Karmen Kwok chose to wake up at 33, even if she had to pay dearly to do it. And the lesson she leaves behind, for every girl still holding on to the dream of marrying into wealth, is very simple. A villa someone else gives you, even if it carries your name, is still not truly your home. Relying on someone else will always be nothing more than a place to lean your back. Relying on yourself, that is your own kingdom. And what about you? In your opinion, Karmen Kwok's decision to sell at a 28.4 million Hong Kong dollar loss, about 3.6 million US dollars, just to leave, was it the most foolish move or the clearest headed one in Hong Kong showbiz in 2026? Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next heated behind-the-scenes stories from showbiz and the world of wealthy families. See you in the next episode.